Good morning. Thanks for having me back again. As you all know, I do like coming and I hate speaking. So it's kind of like a push-pull for me all the time. And it's a little bit unique. However many of you are involved with the Living Word Ministry and the Women's Ministry, Angela has been focusing a lot. Angela, the pastor of the Women's Ministry, has been focusing on mental health. And me and a colleague were here last night doing a Q&A for the Women's Ministry on mental health issues, the integration with faith, and all kinds of things like that. So it's a little bit of a press, right? I was here till late last night doing some Q&A and talking, and then coming in today to talk a little bit more about mental health, but talking about it from a parental standpoint. But I just wanted to throw that out there because anytime that you can have some support around that, I think it's a really good thing. And there's going to be ongoing gatherings that are really focusing on that. And so I just want to encourage you to keep an eye out for that in the future, if that feels like a supportive thing for you to do. This morning, I am going to focus on pressure. And in particular, I was thinking about academic and athletic pressure. There's a lot of pressure. Our kids are under a lot of pressure. Well, we are under a lot of pressure, right? And our kids certainly are under a lot of pressure. And so I wanted to talk about what that looks like for our kids, and then talk about what are some things that as parents we can understand or know or do to help our children and to help ourselves with that pressure that is being applied from multiple different areas in their life and in our lives, right? And how do we navigate that pressure? And also really want to recognize that as parents, we don't intend to put pressure on our children. And, we don't want to put negative pressure on our children. Obviously, positive pressure, that's a good thing, right? Those are called boundaries and expectations, and we need to have those. But the negative pressure, when it becomes detrimental, I know parents, we never intend to do that, but it's incredible the messages that our kids take away from some of our input. And the takeaway message is sometimes very different than the intention. And so just want to throw that out there that, I certainly understand that as parents, none of you intend to put undue pressure on our children, and yet it happens. And so just want to hold that space for all of us. And so it's going to be I just want to do really basic talk about that, just because I feel like a lot of you have said some of the nuggets that you walk away with are really helpful. So it's not really about the entire content of what I'm talking about, but I'm hoping I can put a few things out there that feel like good takeaways for you. And so pressure, I'm going to talk about the consequences of pressure. And again, probably the obvious is going to be here, but I just want us to be thinking about it. What are the consequences of pressure, both on our littles and on our adolescents? And then I'm going to talk about what we can do about it. And so the consequences of the pressure that is placed, obviously higher rates of mental health issues. That is something that's obvious over the past few years. And the eruption of mental health issues in our littles and in adolescents and adults is just off the charts. It's something unprecedented. And so recognizing that pressure is a key piece of it, perceived or otherwise. Higher risk of injuries. So we see that a lot in athletes now, that they are disregarding their healthy boundaries for their bodies, and they're pushing themselves past what is healthy and good in order to achieve some sort of level of what? I'm not even sure. That's a little bit different for everybody. But if your child is an athlete, thinking about what that means. I give an example sometimes of my daughters when we talk about, I talk about the concept of discomfort and the difference between push through pain and stop pain. And like I said, I have two previous soccer players, and both of them played at a pretty high level. And when they were young playing soccer, every single thing was stop pain. Everything was stop pain. They had 10 Band-Aids on them at any given time. They would come off the field for any single thing that would happen, right? They were, if you have littles and if you have kids in sports, you may have a similar experience. And so everything was stop pain. And so helping our daughters to understand that there is a threshold of pain that you can actually push through, and to train them in that early. And then when they became adolescents and they were at a high level of soccer, all of a sudden everything became push through pain, which was an extreme that was also problematic. We had one child that would be dishonest about a concussion that she had, because she wasn't acknowledging stop pain, and because it had to do with her wanting to play and her wanting to not let her team down. And that's what I mean about that kind of pressure that sends missed messages to our children. So that's what it might look like in an athletic format, but that also happens in an academic format. I have kids that stay up all night studying for tests, and then I have to give them some psychoeducation about how the brain actually works, and that when we stay up, we aren't doing anything for learning, and in fact, we are unlearning things. And so that would be a push through pain that academically is working against them, that only creates problems down the line, and it's not a life skill, right? That is not a good life skill. Increased likelihood of cheating. I'm going to get into that a little bit later, but that is definitely something that is an outcome of high pressure for a certain type of grade. Refusing to participate. So when we see kids that back completely out of academics, they stop trying, they stop showing up. Their body might show up, but nothing else does. Papers that get turned in that have zeros on them, that is very, very unlikely for most students, that if they're putting effort in, they're doing something. But when we see zeros, something is going on there. So wanting to identify kids who refuse to participate are communicating with us. Something is happening, and it's not that they're lazy. They are trying to get a message across that somehow they haven't been able to get across in any other way, and so their behavior is communicating with us. And as parents, we need to look at that behavior as communication, not a behavior we need to just change. We need to understand where that behavior is coming from and have some compassion and be able to sit with that in order to identify why is my child just completely stopped trying. Obviously, increased pressure creates self-esteem problems. We see that all over the place. If I can't reach a certain level in a certain area, whether it be the arts, athletics, academics, whatever that is, self-esteem and my value starts to take a hit. And that's probably something we as adults can identify as well. And then the last one that, and there's lots of them, but the last one I'm going to mention is sleep deprivation. So when I'm feeling pressure and I'm anxious about that, anxiety and sleep don't fit together at all. And so then we see sleep issues, and if sleep starts to become a problem, if you've ever heard me speak or been in my office, you will hear me say this: sleep is baseline. Sleep is baseline. If you're not sleeping, that's where we have to start, because I can't build on non-sleep. I can't build on a brain that's foggy. I can't build on emotions that aren't able to regulate because I don't have enough rest. My body's tired, my brain's tired, everything is tired. So when you start to see sleep issues with your kids, start to do some inquiry about what is going on. All right. And I'm just, the term hustle culture came to my mind as I was writing all of this. And it is a culture that we're in, you know, whether you like it or not, it seeps into every aspect of our life. And that there is a point where hustling is good, but when my identity is wrapped around what my achievement is, and I need to hustle for all straight A's, or I need to be the captain, or I need to be a starter on the team, or I need to be the first chair in the band or music program, and nothing else is satisfactory. Now my behavior becomes my identity. My achievement becomes my identity. And my identity no longer is who I am and what I have to offer the world. It's only what I can do. And success only means one level of achievement. And that is dangerous. It's dangerous for us as adults, and it's dangerous for our children. And so just identifying hustle culture. All right, what can we do? So those are the things we need to watch for in ourselves as parents, as well as watching for these things popping up in our children. And what can we do? The one thing that I recommend just even taking a look at is process over outcome. So what we often see is the outcome is the measure of success, right? So the A, the captain of the team, the starting position, it has to be a certain level, and the outcome equals success, and anything other than that outcome is not success. And that sets our kids and us up for a whole lot of problems. This is where the cheating comes into play, because if success only looks like an A, and that kid is an artistically wired kid, and this kid is in a math class, and A's don't come easy, then that kid is going to have to navigate between, do I not get an A trying the hardest that I know how to do and feel like a failure, or do I cheat and get an A? Because the A is looked at as success rather than the process is the success. And so thinking about what is important. Am I doing the best that I can do in this situation? Am I playing the best on this team? Am I offering the best in this class? Am I giving the best time and effort to my musical instrument? And if that doesn't get me first chair, if that doesn't get me a starting spot, can I walk away from that knowing I left it all on the field and I feel really good about that? That is a message that as parents we need to continue to offer to our children, because the world isn't offering that very often. I know there are places where that is offered, but it definitely isn't offered as a norm. And so we have to be really thoughtful of that. If you've ever read the book Atomic Habits, the author does a really good job of talking about that, especially in the first couple chapters. It's a great book if you haven't read it. And the way that he talks about it is goal over system, and that is just the outcome versus the way I'm living life, right? My life habits, day in, day out, day in, day out. Things that have to do with me putting my best effort forth, study habits, integrity, being able to identify, that the outcome is not my value, those kinds of things. And that is replicatable through life. But goal-driven stuff is not replicatable through life when we talk about the outcome being the measure of value. And so I really appreciated the way that author described this concept, and the way that author really encouraged creating systems in your life, which I would call life skills, right? Like on my goal, or on my, well, it's a goal board, but on my goal board, I have move 5 times a week. It doesn't say run 10 miles. It doesn't say that. It says my life skill is I need to move 5 times a week. And recently, moving 5 times a week means walking. I can't run for a while, and I can't do things that I normally would do, but my goal, my system is replicatable. I can still achieve that goal in a really healthy way, and it doesn't set me up for failure because I've got one thing that equals failure. And that same concept is a great one to help our kids to see. And like I've said to you guys before, I copy this from Brian, but things are caught more than taught. So the things that we're modeling and living out are the things that our kids are picking up really readily. Oh, another thing that if you want to see this from a more of a sermon type of a delivery for this message, Peter Haas gave a sermon years ago, and I've never forgotten it. And I went to look it up. It's on YouTube, and it's for fall 2019 and February. It was re-released again in February 2022. But the name of it is called The Burden of Obedience versus the Burden of Outcome. And it's the same concept, it's just done more from a faith perspective, and it's talking about how we obey integrous guidance from the Holy Spirit rather than pressuring ourselves to get to a certain outcome that equals success. And I just thought he did a fantastic job with that. So that being another resource or reference. The second thing we can do as parents, ask ourselves why their performance, their test score, or their success, I'm going to quote unquote success, matters so much. What is it about them not being captain, not being a starter, not having an A, not being a good musician that impacts you so much? This would be that self-reflection that as parents, if there's something going on inside of us that has us putting undue pressure on our child to achieve something, that's an important thing to look at. Even if you don't say anything, that energy is in the room. That your kid is feeling that. Whether or not you're saying it, they're feeling it. And so it's really important for us as parents to not just say, if I have the right words to say, then everything will be fine. Because if you're living out a different truth and saying a different thing, the teenagers that land on my couch know that there is something wrong with that. There is hypocrisy. They use words like hypocrisy. They use pretty strong words. They feel it and they don't like it. And so making sure, and I'm a fan of, age appropriate, to be really open with your kids about that. This is something I struggle with and I'm working on that. And for some reason I feel pressured to, I feel bad that you're not a starter and that's having an impact on me. And yet the truth is you are putting it all out there and I'm so proud of you. So all of that put in front of your kid is so honest. And they love that, and they can take that, and they can use that for their struggles later on in their life, because mom and dad modeled the fact that they aren't really sure why they have this kind of unhealthy thing going on inside of them, and they can hold that. I can hold that out in front of myself and my child, and that type of modeling, that is a life skill. So reflecting on what it is about me that needs their performance to be at a certain level. And then the last one is something you hear me say almost every single time, and the reason I say it is because it's important. And it's that whole ask, don't tell, right? So when we are seeing our kids struggle with pressure, whether it's pressure that you feel like came from the home, or it's coming from something at school, or something from a coach or teammates or the world in some way, sitting that child down, asking their thoughts and feelings about the way things are going. And then when you ask, listen without input. And if you feel like you want to give some input, ask permission. Are you looking for input right now? So a phrase between me and my daughter, who is also a therapist, she will often say, are you looking for support or input? and I love that, because that's, very clarifying. So she's not just jumping in and saying, here's what I think about what you're going through. She's clarifying, Mom, do you just want me to listen right now? Or are you looking for my feedback? And then I can really discern between whether or not I am interested in feedback, or this is just a vent session and I just need to get it out. And so that is something that maybe for your older kids, you can use that phrase. Is this something you just need to sit and dump, or is this something that you're looking for feedback? And then another thing, and another aspect of this that I'm going to acknowledge, this came from Courtney, because she went through my notes. She will be here with me, I think, next time. When you are exercising that, giving my kids space, focusing on listening, focusing on being present, simply being with them in whatever it is that they're struggling with, if they're feeling pressure, they're feeling not good enough. Notice if that feels uncomfortable for you. Notice if that's a hard thing for you to just not say anything, not offer correction, not offer, something back. And if there's something uncomfortable about that, notice, just take that into account. Maybe go do something with that. If you have a therapist, bring that into your session and say, I've been noticing that this is really, really difficult for me to not correct or improve upon, or just sit with something difficult with my child. That is a really valuable thing to take a look at. When our kids feel seen, and I'm gonna add, when anyone feels seen and heard, this is the basis for achievement, for desire to do my best. It is safe. I feel safe when I am simply heard and empathized with and acknowledged, and then I can reach in and do the best with what I have to work with in a space that feels very safe, which means if I don't get the A, if I'm not the captain, it's okay. There is no problem with that, and I can work through any difficulties that might bring up. Unsafe situations, emotionally unsafe situations, shut us all down. And then we aren't able to be honest, and a lot of us don't even realize it. And so really keeping an eye on if my child doesn't seem like they're able to open up, there's a reason for that, and it might be you. And to be able to hold that without shame, to just kind of go, okay, something's going on here. It might be a little bit my kid, right? There might be an introvert. They might just not be that external processor or something. But there might be something that I am giving off that is making it very difficult for them to open up in a way that is really, really vulnerable. So there is just a few things that I wanted to bring up and offer you guys to think about in regards to pressure for our kids. And I know that on the school side, there's a whole lot of really good stuff going on to help support our kids through that type of thing. And just want to encourage you again to reach out for that if you feel like there is something that is confusing or you don't know for sure how to handle it. Reach out to Ms. Floten. She's fantastic, and the whole team here. Because this is a team event. Raising kids is a team event, and Maranatha is a fantastic team member. I know you all know that because that's why you're here. And so I would encourage you to do that if you're having struggle. So thank you.